two hearts living in just one mind. Hello and welcome to the next episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies with special guest Tim Davis. This is the podcast where all three of us went and saw a movie at our local Regal Cinema Theater, and now we're going to talk about it in Matt's on the pilot, right after the movie, in the parking structure, right next to the movie theater. And we're going to talk about such things as, should you see this movie, should you not see this movie, should you bring your family, could you bring a date, should you go by yourself, do you need to pay attention, could you nap, could you snack, could you craft, all these things. And we're going to try to answer some of those questions, all those questions, none of those questions. You know, we try our best. Here we are. I am Todd Domer.
And I'm Matt Malloy, and I vote for none of those questions tonight. Podcast over.
Da-da-da-da-da.
Just kidding. We will talk about a movie tonight. We saw a movie called Venom, The Last Dance, the third in the series of Venom movies that we have viewed tonight. So there are some famous people in it. Tim, who might we recognize in this film?
Well, of course, the lead, our guy Tom Hardy, is back as Venom for the third time, although you could argue, really, this is the least connected to the previous movies, as they didn't have much other returning cast. And we've got some new people joining the fun. Good old character actor and actually Oscar winner, Chiwetel Ejiofor, shows up as a soldier who was trying to track down these aliens and figure out what they're up to. He's probably most famous for, he won his Oscar for 12 Years a Slave. He was in, Mordo in the Doctor Strange movies for Marvel. He's been around a long time, good actor. Juno Temple shows up as one of the scientists studying these symbiotes. She is probably most famous for her role on Ted Lasso. And we have, I think it's Rhys Ifans is his name. He shows up as a hippie leading his family across the nation to try and find Area 51, not knowing what was going on there. He was probably a Marvel connection, having played Lizard in the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies. And I'd say that's it for recognizable names, although Andy Serkis does show up as, not as himself as usual, a motion capture role as this mysterious Null character who apparently is the father of the symbiotes, and I'm sure Matt will get into that as he explains what this movie's about.
I might get into that, or I might skip that completely.
That's fine too.
Well, anyway, what is this movie about? Okay, well, we've got, Tom Hardy's character. We've got Eddie Brock, yes, and his buddy, Venom, the symbiote that lives inside of him. If you haven't seen these movies, Venom is like a alien jelly creature.
Yep.
That's how I'm defining him. Alien jelly creature.
Alien
that's
jelly.
fair.
Not a jam, to be confused.
Not a jam.
Definitely
a jelly.
More Morpheus.
All right. So
Amorphous.
we start the movie, and they are trying to live life, and what we find out is that there are several groups of people who end up hunting them. One of them is, well, we also find out there's this big bad guy who's outside of the universe who's going to break free of his prison and come destroy everything.
Yeah.
And the key for him to do that is embedded somehow in the Eddie Venom symbiotic relationship. It's this thing called the Codex, right? So that's all that the bad guy needs to free his eternal prison is this Codex, which is found in one place in the universe, on planet Earth, in our friends. That entity sends sort of another hunter creature to find the Codex. In the meantime, there's also a group of scientists / military people who are collecting various symbiote material and storing it in a lab. And so they are also out to find Eddie and Venom. And so these two groups of people are trying to find him for various reasons. And meanwhile, Eddie and Venom travel across America in high style and having adventures along the way. And we all end up at Area 51 at the end of this thing, with a massive battle between all parties. And I'll say that's what this movie is about. So, Todd, do you have any Venom in your opinion, in your gut reaction of Venom: The Last Dance?
Well, if you were listening to Matt's intro of the movie and you think to yourself, well, that's confusing and there's a lot going on and that doesn't sound very fun or very good, you're right in thinking that way, because this movie is not very fun or very good or very totally watchable, in my opinion. It's real bad. And it's a shame, because this is a franchise that started off, I think, on the right foot. Yep. And they just never evolved from it. Like, they changed the story each movie, kind of, but then kept all the same elements in every movie. And by the time you get to this one, you feel it some and two, where you're like, this isn't good. Like, why am I watching this movie? And then you feel that a lot in this movie, or at least I did. Yeah. And it's a shame, because I think there are good elements in these movies. They just are strung along by a really bad plot, really bad writing, and it just is strummed together funny scenes, or scenes that are supposed to be funny, of Eddie with the symbiote and reacting to the world. But it's almost like those are the more important scenes, and everything else that is the story of the movie was just come up last second to string the funny scenes together. Like, so you have a movie where it seems all the effort was, let's put into these funny, quote-unquote funny scenes of, you know, we got Venom dancing with Mrs. Chang, we got Venom singing, like that was all the stuff that the executives were like, it's got to be in this movie. Make the movie fit with these things in mind. So that's exactly how it feels to me, is a writer being told to make things fit into this movie, and the things are the more important things, and then the actual story of the movie is cast by the wayside. And it's not like acting is so bad in this movie. It's not like it's horrible all around. It's just, you can't get behind this movie because the story is so bad, and it's the third time you've kind of seen it, and they're not touching on almost anything new in this movie, and it just was a trilogy just to be a trilogy. Like, at this point, just to be like, let's squeeze as much money as we can out of this and make everyone not care about the characters anymore. And that's Sony's MO, is let's take great stories. We have the blueprints of the comics to create good movies, but yet we're going to do whatever the hell we want to do and not abide by any of those established stories, or even connect to them in any kind of way. Besides the fact that Venom was known as the lethal protector in the comics. That comes up several times in this movie as they try to hammer it home. We're the lethal protector.
And just to clarify, Todd, you're not coming from the angle of a comic book fan who's messing with, like,
I don't care about Venom in comics.
You're okay with
This
interpretations.
isn't, this isn't like Superman to me, where I'm like,
right.
You know, my favorite hero, the mythos is the mythos. This
right.
is like a character I don't care about at all.
And you're open to whatever.
And I'm open to taking things in a nice direction, but none of this is nice. Like, it's just overdone, Sony typical bullshit. Like, and it's hard to get behind it all. Like,
it reminds me of the end of the DC universe.
Yeah, it's like, let's have stinger scenes. Yeah, let's have stinger scenes at the end that probably won't connect to anything. You have to kind of do a scene at the beginning of this movie that somewhat kind of semi-explains a cutscene from a previous movie, and that's the problem with all these movies, is that, you know, one movie does a cutscene at the end, and then either you try to connect to it or you don't, and it just creates a mess. So none of this movie screams to me that none of the important things of character building and wanting to pay a tribute to these characters comes through. It's just all Sony typical. Like, oh, we'll put it out there and the nerds will like it no matter what. Well, no, they won't. And I hope they don't. And I hope this loses a lot of money so someone learns a lesson. And that's where I'm going to leave it. Because apparently only money loss can learn lessons in Hollywood. So, Tim, how do you feel about this movie?
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Todd. And as someone who's kind of only more recently seen the Venom movies, so they're fresher in my mind. It's kind of like you said, the first movie is like, okay, we're having a little fun offshoot here, you know, set in a, you know, superhero world, but not really. It's a little bit disconnected, and it was kind of fun and silly, and, you know, a perfectly fine superhero movie, the first one. The second one kind of went off the rails and tried to do too much and was like you said, strung together by convenience and plot threads that were only there to drive the movie forward. And then this one, I felt, took that and went even more so, to the point of like, there were scenes created in boardrooms, thrown together, and then you guys figure out how to connect them, is how the movie came across to me. And it was so different than the other two, as far as just settings and characters being brought back, and I can't, like you said, there's good actors in this. There might have been some things they could have had more fun with, or at least explored more, but it was all just a big tangled mess. And I even as someone, if let's say you're a big fan of Venom, or the movies at least to this point, I can't even say this is a good payoff or a good wrap up in a way that's satisfying in any kind of way. And it's like, it's not as funny at all this time. Like, the humor is not there anymore from Venom and Eddie going back and forth about, conflicting ideas as they always have. And it's just, I don't know who this movie is for. It's just, it doesn't reach, at least if I'm the target, it didn't hit me, but I don't think there's a lot of people that's the target. Our theater was pretty quiet, and it was pretty, I would say, decently full, and I didn't hear any laughs except for like at the end when something was kind of silly, and it's silly in the like, I can't believe I watched that way, and that's not the reaction you want coming out of a big movie like this that's supposed to be the third, encapsulating trilogy ender, and it's just like, wow, I survived that, I guess. And so I can't recommend it. Matt?
This movie was a chore to watch.
Yes.
If I had been at home watching this because I thought it was going to be, something interesting, I would have turned it off.
Yep.
If we hadn't been reviewing it, I would not have watched it to the end. It was not a good movie. However, I will say one good thing. There was one cool scene at the end with the big fight, and there's a lot of symbiotes, and they're all fighting, and they all look different, and it's kind of cool.
That's where the budget went.
That's the only really good thing about this movie. There's a dog in it, but I thought the dog was kind of underplayed.
Just kind of there.
Kind of there. Yeah.
Wouldn't it have been interesting and if instead of the 3 movies we got, right? Let me set up a Venom movie of if I were to do it, how I would do it.
It's already got to be better, so go ahead.
So you set up a Venom movie where Eddie Brock's the main character, but it is a it is still kind of like a Spider-Man-esque movie where Peter Parker is still in it. It's just instead of Peter Parker becoming Spider-Man, Eddie Brock becomes Venom through the certain way. And it's like, it turns everything kind of on its head where it's like Eddie Brock, the jock, goes through this hero's journey instead of Peter Parker, the nerd.
Yeah,
like we're like
the guy who's not usually picked.
Yeah, instead of the I'm not worthy
superhero
type, which is we get in every superhero movie.
Yes.
Eddie gets the symbiote, and because he's a jock and has all the confidence in the world, he's just like, I'm amazing. And then somewhere along the line, he learns a lesson, like he fails or something like that. But wouldn't that have been more interesting than the movies that we got?
A different trope. Yes.
Like it's like let's do all the Spider-Man lore, but turn it on its head and just have this story be about Eddie becoming Venom in a world where there is no Spider-Man. Like
he hasn't become it yet or whatever.
Yeah. Like there will be no Spider-Man. This is the world it is, and Venom is just an anomaly, an alien that combined with a human. This is the story we tell. It's not larger than it is. It just is. Like
I'm already way more interested in that than what we.
And you get the you can have all the nods to the comics and have all the characters in it. There's still a Captain Stacy. There still is Peter Parker. He's just a nerd, or whatever. And maybe even Peter helps Eddie along the way become more human instead of a jock bully. That's interesting to me. It's taking the lore, turning it on its head, doing something different.
I'm already way more interested in that.
And here we are with this mess. Mm-hmm. And I think it sucks because the first movie, I think they could have gone anywhere. The first movie did it well enough, and it had a backing, and it was like, as long as you deliver strongly, we will follow this train. And then 2 came out, and you were like,
fun enough. Yeah.
You were like, right. And then 3 is like, we're just pitter pattering across the finish line here. The car's about to. The wheels are off and we're dragging, and it's like we're just crossing the finish line. But it was a chore to cross the finish line. We had to push the last half mile.
Yeah. Well, your alternate universe is more interesting than what I came up with, Todd, which is what I was thinking at the end of this movie. I was thinking, what if instead of what happened in this movie, all the symbiotes got loose and they formed like an Avengers style fighting force to fight crime and also eat cats or whatever.
Because they were really trying to hammer home that the symbiotes are not the bad guys in this movie.
Right.
It's like every scene was like, we're not the bad guys, remember? And then it was like, here we all fight for you. We're not the bad guys, remember?
Don't forget, we're not bad.
I thought you were going to say you wished all of them combined into a super symbiote.
Ooh, I even like that idea. Even better.
I thought that was going to be the crux of the end. It's like, oh, we all got to combine.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
It was like into a symbiote Voltron or something.
Yeah.
Well, all of these ideas would have been better than what actually happened.
Yeah.
This mess of a movie is not good, and I don't recommend you see it.
Nope.
The jokes are lame.
Yep.
The extravagant, drawn-out, wannabe funny scenes are not funny.
Nope.
And you end up with a mess, and that's what I'll say about
Glad
this.
it's the last dance.
It took 20 minutes for them to get to Vegas for one dance scene, and then they were out of Vegas.
Yes,
and
it's
just
clearly, like I said, it was this.
Holy
have
moly.
this. We got to do this dance scene.
Yeah.
I don't care how you get there.
We gotta throw Mrs. Chang in because
That's a funny little callback. No,
she was in the first two.
Yeah.
Man, just bad.
Yeah.
Well, how many Christmas tree symbiotes would you give this movie? Which was, we're not even going to go into the Christmas tree thing because it's so dumb. It's not even a spoiler. I just don't want to talk about it because it would make me angry. And but the Christmas tree person we're talking about does become a symbiote at some point. I don't know what their name is, and I'm not going to call them Venom, but I just call them Christmas tree symbiote. So 0 being the worst because then you have none and you got no protectors and you know what's happening. You're probably dead. 5 being the best because then you got 5 and that's a super team if I've ever heard one. Matt?
Yes. Well, I wish it was a super team, but it's not, as we've learned. And so I'm going to give this 1.3 Christmas tree symbiotes, and the 0.3 is because I like that one scene.
Yeah, that's fair.
Tim?
Yeah, I'm right down there in the ones as well. It's just like, what is happening here? Why are we doing this, Sony? And why did we take something that could have been more fun and not be fun? Even the scenes from the trailer, which I didn't think were all that fun to begin with, when seeing them in the movie, it's like, ugh, that's it. And it's just the whole thing is a lot of that's it. And so I'm at a 1.1.
Yeah, not too far for me. I mean, it seems like one of the subplots of this movie, which makes no sense, is why can't Eddie keep his shoes on? Well, like that comes up so much through the movie of like, oh, my shoes are gone again. Oh, like so every half hour it was like, oh, my shoes. I like these shoes. These are the best shoes. It seems like a little kid wrote this script.
Yeah.
And I completely forgot about like there's like a general guy who's a behind the scenes guy who they show several times in the movie, and then he kind of comes around in the end for his big introduction, and there is no introduction. He is in and out like a fart in the wind, and you're like, what? We've been shown that your entire life is watching monitors of just Eddie Brock doing Venom things. Oh boy, yeah, it's bad. I'm at like a 0.9. It's just
under 1.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. I thought I was going to be at the 1, and then the general guy popped up in my head again, and I was like, what a ridiculous thing. And the shoes. Eddie can't keep his shoes on. Isn't it funny? He's always talking about shoes, and then the hippie guy gives him sandals, and he doesn't like that shoes. He wants his Crocs back. Are you guys laughing yet?
Yeah. That's the kind of humor you can look forward to if you ever want to watch it.
Yeah.
Well, any last thoughts?
And most of the time I was like, why isn't Venom creating shoes for you, Eddie? He can. We've seen it happen. Every time you're shoeless, it's like, just get on those nice rubber Venom soles. It can happen.
It's true.
But that's not funny.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies, where we reviewed the movie Venom: The Last Dance. We didn't think this movie was good. We don't think you should see it. We gave it an average rating of 1.1 Christmas tree symbiotes out of 5. That ain't good, people.
Mm-mm.
And we
One of
don't
the lowest
recommend you see
ratings
it.
of the year, I believe.
It's bad.
It seems like we've been in the ones a lot.
We
Like,
have been.
all of a sudden,
We've
yeah.
been on a
Mhm.
stretch of a lot of ones.
Yeah. It's too bad you didn't see that movie we wanted you to see, Todd. We could've
Yeah, I know.
broken out. Well, anyway,
As
thanks.
soon as it comes to a streaming service, I will watch it.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
been a few that Todd's missed that have been great.
Thanks for listening to our podcast. Please continue to do so. Download, subscribe, do all the things so that we can have the pleasure of you knowing that you listened. And
And maybe even making an educated decision on what movies
Yeah.
you see.
Correct.
yes, we will see you next time.
Da 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 da
Da da
da da da.
da da da.